Today we are going to start in just a couple minutes. Welcome, everyone. We are just going to start in just a minute. It's 12 o'clock Central. Good morning, good afternoon to wherever you are. Thank you thank you for joining us for our October Lunch and Learn on family relationships and healthy boundaries, provided by your Ascension Employee Assistance Program. My name is Erin Johnson, and I am one of the EAP counselors on staff, and I'm also your facilitator for our presentation today. So glad you're able to join us. We are, though, going to go ahead and record this presentation. So I have a coworker, Jen. I'm not sure if you're ready to do that piece yet. You're good? Okay, perfect. So we're going to go ahead and record this session for people who are unable to join us today. So they can see this information afterwards. If you have a question at all during the presentation, you can definitely try to stop me. Use that chat feature that's available. My coworker Jen, she's going to be watching the chat for us, and so she can help with any troubleshooting if you're running into any technology issues, or she can help bring your questions from the chat into the presentation and can help get those answered. So definitely feel free to use that chat. We always enjoy presentations to be as informative as possible, but at the same time, this can be a little bit difficult in this virtual format. So please don't hesitate to use that chat box. So today we are focusing on family relationships. For some people, family relationships, they're easy, they're supportive, they develop naturally over time. The idea of having a close-knit, supportive, and loving family really kind of tends to be the gold star standard for a lot of people. That's what they desire in a family. And these families do exist, but many people also experience challenges with their family, or difficult people, or hard dynamics. And so it's helpful to know how to handle those situations when they arise. The conflict, the personality differences, maybe being taken advantage of by one of our family members, or unhealthy communication patterns that can form. So today we're going to focus on creating healthy boundaries within our family relationships. Okay, so here we go. Today, our objectives are pretty simple. We are going to talk about roadblocks that prevent us from enjoying time with our family. We're going to talk about strategies to help us connect more and enjoy that family experience more often. We're going to talk about ways to disengage from family conflict and drama, right, that happens in many families. And we're going to talk about ways to care for ourselves to help us get the most from our family relationships. So that's what we'll be focusing on today. So this slide is a really interesting slide. Talks a lot about why family can be the best and the hardest thing in our lives. So looking at that left side of the screen, some of the reasons why family is important, or the best thing that can happen in our life, is that family helps us know who we are. Family gives us a history and a heritage. We know where we come from, and that can be really helpful for us. In many cases, family, they're supportive. They're on our side when everybody else feels like they're against us. They take care of us when we need somebody to take care of us. They are generally trustworthy, loving, loyal, and generous. And generally, family accepts us for who we are, right? They know who we are and they accept us. The good things, the quirky things, and everything in between. And no one loves you like your family. Home is where you're loved the most. So those are some of the wonderful, important things about family. But on the opposite side, sometimes family can be one of the hardest things in our life, or one of the most difficult things to navigate. So sometimes people experience the opposite of the examples I just shared on that left side of the screen, where family isn't supportive, family maybe doesn't take care of you, or they don't accept you as you are. And so sometimes that's what we have within our family. Sometimes family members gang up on one another, or they reject people in the family. Sometimes our family members are the ones that need to be taken care of. So they might rely on us to help solve problems or fix things. Sometimes family, for some people, doesn't feel healthy and it doesn't feel safe. And sometimes with family, home, the people we feel safest and most comfortable with is where we act the worst, where we, not the best side of us is shown to our family sometimes, especially when we're very comfortable with them. Or maybe within our family, they feel comfortable with us, and so we don't see the best side of them. And sometimes it's really easy to take our family for granted, right? Because they're not leaving us, they're family, they're there for us. And sometimes it's easy to overlook that and take them for granted. And sometimes family members don't respect our individual boundaries. So at the end of the day, family can be a really wonderful thing, but it can also be a really difficult thing to navigate. And that's why we're talking about this topic today. It's a really important one, especially as we head into a time of the year with a lot of holidays, a lot of family events, a lot of family things coming up. This is good information to have available. So we're going to talk for a minute about stress fractures. I'm guessing most people are familiar with this concept. Stress fractures are fractures and cracks in our bones that form from overuse or repetitive force. Stress fractures also happen from normal use, especially when our bones are weakened from a medical condition like osteoporosis. anybody can experience a stress fracture, right? Young or old, healthy or not, someone who's been exercising for a long time, someone who's new to exercising. You can be at risk of a stress fracture if you do too much too soon, if you push yourself too hard, or if you're not taking care of yourself. Okay, so you might be looking at this slide and wondering why we're looking at an x-ray of someone's foot and how this relates to family dynamics. What I've found is that when I'm talking about families and relationships, especially thinking about my own family, there's a lot of emotion that's tied to it and a lot of feelings, and it can be a really difficult concept to think about with all of the emotions and all of the feelings in there. So sometimes it's helpful to take a similar concept that doesn't have the emotions tied to it, like these stress fractures, and apply it to these relationships. So, right, so this example is going to help us draw some conclusions here, stripping away some of the emotions and some of the feelings that can cloud our judgments, our perception on the situation. So let's kind of, the next slide's going to pull this together. So we experience fractures in our relationships with people for a variety of different reasons. And when those behaviors that cause the fractures are intense, or they're persistent or consistent over a long period of time, that has a really, really big impact on us. So let's think about this for a minute. Have you ever felt an emotional stress fracture from overuse by members of your family? What might that look like? If you have thoughts, you can go ahead and pop them in the chat. This could be someone who perpetually comes to you over and over and over again, someone from your family who needs money, who needs your time for help. Maybe they need you to babysit or watch their kids over and over. Maybe someone who comes to you constantly needing a listening ear. They don't have other strategies to help them manage the stress in their life. Have you ever felt an emotional stress fracture because you're already weak from something else? Okay, maybe the stress of work has been so overwhelming, you're worn down and you're exhausted, but family keeps coming and needing things from you. Or maybe you've got a new baby and you're exhausted from the sleep deprivation, but family is still wanting and needing and relying on you. Or you're managing a chronic health condition and just don't have the capacity to be there for family in the way that you have. That can fracture those relationships. And what about, have you ever felt an emotional stress fracture because you did too much too soon? Right? Maybe something happened at a family event and you decided you wanted to distance yourself from your family members. And then the next holiday came around and maybe you jumped in too soon, too much, and we're feeling that hurt again. Okay. So we hear the saying, blood is thicker than water, right? We hear that a lot. Is it true? Is it not true? We don't have a choice about the family we're born into. That's chosen for us. In a healthy family, we accept people as they are. We know people have their ups and their downs, and we care for them deeply, and it's a reciprocal relationship. We give to them, they give to us, and it works well, right? But it's not like that for everybody. Not every family's like that. So although we can't make choices about the family we're born into, we do get to make choices about the people we spend our time with, who gets our attention, how much time we spend with them, and how we distance ourselves from them too. So if you think about your family and think if they're, think about somebody in your family who maybe might cause you some stress or some challenge, or if there's a difficult dynamic with someone, consider this. If this person was not a blood relative to you, would you choose to be their friend? Would this be someone you'd invite into your chosen family? Would you loan them money? Would you let them treat you the way that they're treating you? Everybody might have different answers on that based on a lot of different things, but those are some really important questions. Most of us have a mixture of relatives and chosen family who are friends, people who share similar interests, similar values, similar experiences, where we have some kind of commonality and form a bond with them, right? So chosen family is just as important as our biological family. When it comes to family relationships, creating boundaries is a helpful strategy. And so that's what we're going to talk about now. I think when we talk about the idea of creating boundaries, what first comes to people's minds, or what might first come to a lot of your minds, maybe not everybody, but is the idea of boundaries around like work and home. You create work-life, we use boundaries to create work-life balance, to keep work at work and keep home at home so we can engage in our home lives. Sometimes we create boundaries with other people, like with maybe some friends or some coworkers who might need a lot of our time or attention, but we don't often think about creating boundaries with family members, which is interesting. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But boundaries are often designed to limit something that's undesirable for us and to protect us. This involves being self-aware, being aware of where our limits are, being empathetic towards the situation, towards our needs, towards their needs, towards everybody's feelings, being reasonable, some negotiation, limits, and consequences too, for if those boundaries get pushed too far. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that here. How do we create boundaries with family? Because it seems like a difficult thing to do. So boundaries are a line that limits something, right? Different kinds of boundaries are listed in that yellow box there. So physical boundaries might be a boundary that you put in place around your personal space or physical touch. Some people like to hug, some people don't want to hug. And so, right, physical boundaries are really important. And emotional boundaries, this is boundaries around emotional awareness, how we regulate, what we disclose to people and what we don't disclose, what we share and what we don't, and having appropriate empathy for other people. Intellectual boundaries of respect for ideas and opinions, healthy dialogue, agreeing to disagree. Time boundaries are setting appropriate time for tasks or even appropriate time for how much time you spend at a family event or family gathering. We might need boundaries around that. Work-life balance is a time boundary, not overextending ourselves for one person or one task. Technology boundaries are right online, social media, things like that. How do we maintain privacy online? How important is that to us or not? How cautious we are with solicitous type emails or outreaches online. Financial, am I following this right? Technology, financial boundaries are right, like financial boundaries, how generous we are, how flexible we are, or maybe aren't with respect to sharing money with other people. How can we be generous but not be foolish with what we do with our money? How can we help someone financially but not enable them or not do something that's harmful to them? Property and items, right? The things that we own, the things that are special to us. How do we share these with people? Do we not share them? Do we loan them to people? How do we ensure we get them back? Lots of boundaries around that. And then sexual boundaries too. So refraining from sexual overtures or comments except with intimate partners, not allowing other people to have unwanted sexual advances towards you, never using coercion towards other people. So these are all different kinds of boundaries that we can create with people in our lives. So within families, what does this look like? What do family boundaries or boundaries with family members look like? I can share some examples with you if you have some ideas you want to put in the chat too, so other people can see those. You can definitely go ahead and do that. But some example of boundaries with family could be going to visit family or going to visit my mom for 2 hours, or until she starts making judgmental, rude comments about my spouse. Or it could be avoiding political discussions at family events. It could be limiting contact with family members who say hurtful things to you. It could be leaving after a certain family member has started drinking alcohol. So those are all different examples of boundaries that we can put in place with families. And I love this quote. I'm not sure if anyone's heard this before. Givers need to set limits because takers rarely do, right? So we might have some people in our family who continually come to us, continually rely on us, continually want to take things from us. And we need to set limits to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe and healthy, to continue being a good, functioning person at work, at home, within our family unit. So that's why boundaries are important. So we're going to talk about ways to create boundaries with family, because this feels hard. It can feel harsh. It can feel like an extreme measure to create boundaries, but it doesn't have to be. They can be very effective. So the first step in creating boundaries with our family is to observe or understand that our needs are important, right? So oftentimes people avoid putting boundaries in place with family members because we're afraid of hurting the other person. We don't want to hurt them, so we avoid putting that boundary in place. But what we're failing to realize is we're thinking a boundary might be helpful. That usually means they're doing something that's hurtful or harmful or unwanted by us. And so at the same time, it's important to keep in mind that our needs are just as important as theirs. If their behavior is hurtful to us, a boundary can be helpful. Your needs matter, and your needs should be your top priority in those family relationships. Next is to seek out people who value you. If there are members of your family who do genuinely value having you be part of this family unit, seek them out and use them to help you set boundaries with those difficult family members who don't seem to value you as much. If there aren't family members in your family who can help you with that, sometimes we need to tap into that chosen family, our friends and our support network, to help us create those boundaries with the difficult family members we might be interacting with. Okay. Third, being firm, but being kind. Sometimes it's hard to make sense of how those two can go together. How do I be firm and be kind at the same time? But it's possible. When we are setting boundaries, that doesn't mean you have to be rude or callous or mean. In fact, setting boundaries with the most difficult people in your family group, it can be more effective when you actually use kindness. So if we approach them in setting boundaries with anger or defensiveness, that can only rile the situation up and cause more distress. So kindness will lead to a better, more positive outcome as you're trying to set those boundaries. If that's a concept that seems really difficult, if you know you need to set boundaries, but you're not sure how to do it kindly, EAP can be a great resource to help you through that process of figuring out how to do that. Okay, this next step is really important in keeping your expectations realistic, right? So we need to try to separate the past from what's happening right now. Because someone's been rude or hurtful in the past doesn't mean they're going to be rude or hurtful again. Sometimes people just have a bad day. I know I have bad days. Sometimes everybody has bad days. Sometimes I say things that aren't the best. I try really hard to always be kind, and sometimes, right, something pops out if I'm tired and I'm not thinking fast enough. So try to stay present in the moment and react to that, and not pull those past experiences forward. If you can attend family functions and keep boundaries with that difficult person, that's great. Do that. But sometimes we can put the best boundaries in place, and it is really hard to avoid being verbally abused by someone or manipulated by them. Those are really hard situations. If that's the situation, if you feel like it would be too hard for you to go into a family event and maintain those boundaries, then definitely consider attending a different family event when that person's not there, or when there might be some other people who can help keep you safe in that environment. So it's important to be realistic about how much time feels tolerable to you when you are interacting with some of those difficult family members, and in what situations you're willing to see that person and for how long. And sometimes we need to be willing to walk away. That seems a little counterintuitive, right? Especially with family, but sometimes it's important. If someone is being toxic to you, or if they are treating you in an unhealthy way, you always have the option to get up and leave a situation. You might feel like you want to defend yourself, but it's always best not to engage with that family member. They might be really good at making you feel like the bad guy or look like the bad guy or stirring up drama within the family. So if you can just get up and simply leave, that's always the best thing to do. You don't have to apologize. You don't have to offer any explanation. You just can get up and go. That's always an option. Okay, next, keep in mind that you are in charge of what you do and how you feel. No one else can make you feel or do or feel anything. So you're in charge of whether or not you create boundaries and whether or not you maintain them. So if you are at a family gathering and let's say somebody, your uncle, a difficult uncle, says something derogatory about your job and about what you're doing at work, you've got some options, right? You can ask him to stop making fun of you, and maybe he'll say that you've never been good at taking jokes, right? Oh, you've never been good at taking jokes. That was just a joke. It didn't feel like a joke. So you've got two options in that moment. You can either pretend everything is fine and continue going on with the family engagement, or you can say something like, yeah, that crosses the line. If you're going to continue, I'm just going to leave. And it's a very kind, simple, straightforward way of establishing that boundary and letting him know you don't appreciate those comments. And you express a consequence for what will happen if it continues. Yeah. Okay, sometimes we just need to be direct, right? Dropping hints or being passive aggressive about boundaries is the worst way to make sure that people understand what we need and what we're expecting in a situation. Especially because sometimes those family members who are really difficult, they just don't have a gauge on that. They aren't very concerned about the and not cautious about the words they're using and the things that they're saying. And so sometimes we do need to be more direct with them so they hear our message. Being explicit about what you want and what you need is definitely okay. It's not okay that that person's making you feel the way that they are. So it's important to be direct about those boundaries, but do that in a respectful and straightforward way. And seek to take care of yourself. Thinking back to those stress fracture examples, right? When we are weaker, when we're not taking care of ourselves properly. When we take care of ourselves, it can feel easier to set up and to stick to those boundaries. It can be easier to deliver our message in a direct, straightforward, respectful, and compassionate way. When we're putting ourselves first, right, we're taking the time to care about ourselves, that can help us find motivation to create those boundaries, especially when we're dealing with difficult family members. And learn to be assertive. Assertive isn't being aggressive. So assertive is a really healthy way to communicate important information with other people. Many difficult people get away with being difficult because nobody stands up to them. People don't have the knowledge on how to do that, or they're scared to do that, or they're not sure how to do that in a positive or productive way. So, so being assertive is a really great way to deliver that message. So if someone enjoys cutting you down, or maybe you have a cousin whose jokes cross a line and goes too far, simply being assertive with them and telling them what you want and need from that situation is going to set the boundary that you're looking for. It's really important that we let our no, when we tell someone no, we let that stand. Okay, I'll let your no mean no. It's not okay. Okay, and then always another option, right, is to say nothing and to not respond. So for difficult people or difficult relationships, sometimes this is the best approach that we can follow. Our energy and our time are precious resources, right? And so if we are spending a lot of time and effort into creating a boundary with someone and it's just not working, it's not worth the time and the effort and the energy that you're putting into those things. This is outside of your control. This is outside of your influence. Your time is best directed somewhere else. Well, sometimes it can be helpful to have a short phrase that we use when we're in these difficult situations and we're starting to feel frustrated. We're trying to set these boundaries and it's not working. Sometimes we need a phrase to just kind of help us let it go. How can we let our frustration, our anger, disappointment around the situation go? And so short phrases that are really helpful for people. One is let it go, let God. Let it go and let God take care of it. It's out of my hands. Some people, they like to recite the serenity prayer. That's very powerful. And some people, right, this next one's kind of, I enjoy this one. I use this one a lot, right? This situation is not my circus. These aren't my monkeys. Like, this isn't a situation for me to try and resolve. So I'm going to walk away from it. If you have any other examples, maybe you have a situation or a short phrase that you use in those moments with difficult family to help you let things go, you can go ahead and put that in the chat too, so other people can see that and have some more examples. But just that reframe on the situation and changing your perspective can help us let things go. Okay. So if you have any questions about creating boundaries, definitely go ahead and you can add those in the chat too. We're going to switch gears a little bit because there are some things we can do outside of creating family boundaries that can help improve family relationships. So boundaries are a really important part of that, but there's a lot of other great things we can do. So recognize that we can love our family, right? But we don't always have to like the things that they're doing, right? So we can love them, but not like the things that they're doing. We can recognize that we're hardest on the people that we love the most. often those are the people we're related to, right? So maybe in those moments when we're recognizing we're being too hard on someone, or maybe we've got some unfair expectations, maybe we need to switch our thinking and offer them some grace or some compassion instead. For difficult relationships, try to treat those family members with the same respect you'd give anyone else. Chances are, if that difficult family member is treating you in a way that's hard or hurtful, they might be treating other people that same way too. And so being met with some respect might be very different than what they've experienced before. And that can be enough to help them change their behavior as well. And celebrate personality differences. I love this slide because differences, right, happen among family members. They certainly happen in every family. Everybody's so different. So try to keep the peace by not making people choose sides. Don't create situations where people in a family feel like they have to choose one or the other. Try to keep the peace. Keep personal information that you don't want people to know private. If other family members are creating drama where they're wanting people to choose sides, don't engage in that, right? Don't choose a side, stay neutral, stay out of that, especially over trivial things. Whenever possible, try to avoid taking sides on an issue, and be sure to include everybody equally and invite them to every event, every party, every celebration, and let them choose if they're going to be joining you or not. Okay. Try to enjoy the differences that exist among your family members. That's what makes families unique. That's what makes families special. Everybody's different. Every family's so unique. Every family has their quirks or their flaws. No family's perfect. Avoid saying bad things about people. Don't be the one to create the drama in the family. Learn how to forgive people who have said or done something hurtful or mean, right? Sometimes people just have bad days. It becomes a problem if it's a persistent, pervasive thing. But if it's just a one-time thing, work through that with them or learn to let that go. Be compassionate, recognize, right, that we all make mistakes, we all have bad days, and the same goes for everybody else in our family. Learn how to let go of feelings of anger and resentment that can happen within families. EAP is a great resource for this. If you feel like this is something that'd be helpful for you, but you're stuck on how to do this on your own, definitely reach out to your EAP. We'll have some information on that at the end. And if you absolutely can't get along with people, keep your distance from one another. Right? Like keeping that distance can help, right? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. If you guys have distance, right, you just don't have the opportunity to create drama, to create situations that cause problems. So keep that distance and keep things private that you want kept to yourself, that you don't want shared with everyone. Yeah. And if you're stuck with a crabby pants, I think maybe if you have somebody in your family who maybe is grumpy or crabby, right? That crabby pants. No, it's okay for family members to do different things. If that person's difficult for you to be around, you don't always have to go and spend time with them. Or if they're somewhere, you don't always have to go and be with them. You could choose to skip an event or maybe go for a certain amount of time. Right? Everyone has different interests, and it's okay for everybody to not be at everything. If an argument flares up, don't engage in it. Try to keep things neutral, try to keep them positive. And remember that hurt people, right? Not that that makes their behavior okay, but someone who's hurting can possibly hurt you too. And that, again, doesn't make their behavior okay, but it might be helpful to give them some grace in that moment, knowing that they're going through something of their own. And when possible, take the high road. Don't engage in situations. Try to just be the person that you're proud to be in that moment, that you're handling a situation positively and productively and not flaring it up and not making it worse. Okay, and right, obviously we can't please everybody. That happens in every aspect of life, right? At work, we can't please everybody. Can't always please our kids. We can't always please our family. It's just not possible. So this is an important concept, especially right at holidays or around events that are traditions that are important to our family. Everybody's going to have different needs and different expectations in those situations. So it can be helpful to take turns hosting if that's something that works for people. right? Some families will rotate those responsibilities, but some families, the tradition of certain people hosting is very much part of that event. So if you can alternate and rotate, definitely do that. It doesn't work for everyone. Let family members celebrate, or let family members choose where they go or when they go. So sometimes we have the same traditions year after year, and over time, sometimes those traditions don't work as well for people. So sometimes our traditions need to change. And trying not to take that personally. That's usually not a reflection on the family specifically, but just a reflection on where those people are in life, that tradition is difficult for them to maintain. Make time for family members outside of those special events that you traditionally gather for, holidays, birthdays, other family events. And be realistic, because again, right, we can't please everybody. So sometimes we feel guilty that we can't attend or we can't participate in something or we can't meet a family's need. Or family members' need. It's important that we not let ourselves feel guilty in those situations, because we're doing the best that we can in terms of navigating and being present for our family. Okay, and sometimes we need to face the elephants in the room. Like, what are those unspoken things that nobody's talking about that's creating tension or stress or awkwardness for a family? A common elephant in the room for family is grief. When we've lost a family member, that really has a ripple effect throughout our whole family, on our family dynamics, on our expectations, on traditions. Plus, everybody grieves differently, and everybody has different needs while they're grieving, which can make navigating family dynamics even more challenging. So it's important to know that grief can strain family relationships. If that's something that you're experiencing, that's normal. It doesn't make it easier, but it's normal. Often holidays provide a stark reminder of that person who we've lost, right? And it can be a point of conflict. It can be a point of difficulty, of really big emotions. So just know that those family gatherings can be really challenging, and know that we shouldn't be judging other people and how they're grieving. We shouldn't be saying someone's grieving too short or someone's grieving too little or too long, right? We need to let everybody experience their own grieving process, and that will look very different from one family member to the next. Know it's okay to feel sad. Traditions may change or look different. Some people just might not be able to follow the traditional activities or events that would normally be planned after losing a family member. And that's okay. It's okay for things to look different, but know that if there are changes, that's going to be a loss too, right? That change in tradition can be a loss. Oh, some family members might want to keep it the same, and for some, it might be just emotionally too difficult. Don't feel like you should do anything. That's a huge one. It's important to give every family member the space and the grace that they need to do what works best for them when they're grieving. And it's important too that you're doing what feels right for you. So, right, we're talking about what a lot of other people need when they're grieving, but it's also important to know what you need when you're grieving, and that you communicate that and you advocate for what you need as well as you're navigating the grieving process with your family. Don't let your loved one become a taboo topic. I love this concept, right? So often when we lose someone we love, it's hard to know how to handle that afterwards. Do we talk about them? Do we not talk about them? If we talk about them, I'm going to make these people sad, and I don't want to bring their grief forward for them if they're not in a grieving space today. But don't let your loved one become a taboo topic. Talk about them, share memories with them, even if it makes people cry. They might have a desire to connect with someone about their memories and about their grief too. They're just not sharing it. Reminisce about past holidays and good memories. Honor the time that was and those special moments that you shared with that family member you lost. But at the same time, don't miss out on the good things that are happening within your family now. So make sure you're present for what's happening now. And healing for those stress fractures. We're talking a lot about family members. We are talking about boundaries and differences and all of these things, but we need to take care of ourselves so we can be the best family member possible to our families. So back to the stress fracture analogy, right? How do we strengthen ourselves to prevent those stress fractures from forming? taking care of ourselves is really important. That means getting adequate sleep and rest. When we're not well rested, we have a reduced capacity to respond to people patiently and thoughtfully and kindly. So it's easier for us to respond in the best possible way, in the way we would want to, when we're well rested. So that's important. A healthy diet is important to give our brains and our bodies the nutrients that we need to put our best self forward with our family. Concept of physical therapy, exercise, moving our body more, parking at the back of the parking lot so you get more steps coming in. Exercise is a really important part of being our best self for our family. And then working through past disappointments and letting them go. Those definitely happen with family, right? Family is a long game. Like we're with them for a long time, and hurts and disappointments happen. And sometimes we need to work through them. If you're feeling hung up on that part, EAP is a great place to come to help you with some support through that as well. Okay. Continuing focusing on ourselves, right? Thinking about our role in these family situations. It's really important to know our own emotional boundaries and what those look like. What crosses the line for you or violates your boundary? What helps you escalate to having your own emotional kaboom, right? Your own emotional explosion. What are those things? What does your kaboom look like? For some people, it might be yelling. I think that's probably what we think of first. For some people, it might be snapping back at other people. It could be an emotional kaboom, could actually look really quiet too. So for some people, it could be shutting down. It could be isolating from other people. It's helpful to know where that line is for you and what contributes to it. So it can be helpful to think about strategies that can help you stay calm and serene, or at least neutral in difficult family situations. So maybe that means making sure you get a good night's rest before you go and spend time with family. Or maybe that means you're careful about how much alcohol you consume when you're with family. Or you leave early if that political conversation starts and you don't want to dive into there. Or limiting your time with family members to prevent getting to that kaboom point. Okay. In those moments with difficult family members, when we start to feel escalated, it can be really helpful to practice self-compassion. Self-compassion sounds fancy, but it is really just simply being kind to ourselves in challenging situations. So when we are involved in difficult situations with family members, we become escalated, our breathing becomes short, it becomes fast, we might start to feel stressed, tensed, our palms might start to sweat. We start to become escalated. So we can use a breathing activity to help us de-escalate from that situation. So you've got a great one on your screen here. This is the 4-7-8 breathing strategy, where you breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. You hold your full lungs for 7 seconds. And then you exhale out of your mouth for 8 seconds. And you just repeat that 4-7-8 breathing pattern between 4 to 8 times, and that can help you de-escalate in those moments with difficult family members when you're trying to figure out what to do and how to respond. This can help take the edge off. Okay. As always, when those situations become escalated, if you are in a spot where you can't say anything nice or contribute in a good way to the conversation, don't say anything. If you need to leave the situation, definitely do that instead of saying something you might regret. Okay, and more ways to practice self-compassion. Another way is to shift our perspective, right? Sometimes life is so busy, we just need to slow down. Life is busy, time waits for no one. Sometimes we need to make time to spend with our family and friends because, right, time just keeps ticking. And if we keep all of the things and all of the activities on our calendar, before we know it, we've gone a long time without seeing our family. But at the same time, know that it is absolutely okay to decide you no longer want to nurture toxic relationships. So there can be a fine line there. Create time for family as long as it's not toxic or unhealthy for you. Be grateful. There are so many things in the world that we can be thankful for, large things and small things. And our family can be among those things that we're grateful for. So it can be helpful to reflect on the different good things that our family members bring to our lives. And then evaluate priorities and values. Make sure that you are living your life in alignment with the things that are most important to you. And thinking about, where does your family fit within your priorities and making sure you're making time for them accordingly. Okay. And there's no doubt that our family experiences and our family member influences help form the people that we are today, right? We wouldn't be who we are today without the family that we have, right? They help shape who we are. But our family is really just the beginning of our story, right? They help write the first part of the story, but we get to determine how the story ends. Sometimes if things are going well, we might be comfortable sitting there in that chapter, keeping things as they are. But sometimes if things aren't going well, or if we're uncomfortable, or we don't feel safe with our family, we might need to chart a new chapter, right? This could include doing the work to improve relationships. This could be looking for the things to appreciate in life. Could be looking for new opportunities at work, at home, with family. It could be realizing our personal strengths and what we contribute to our family, as well as finding or appreciating spiritual pathways to help us grow and develop. Okay. Okay, and self-compassion in the long run. Self-compassion is really important. Family will always be there. Family changes over time, right? New people come in through marriage, people leave through divorce, we lose people that we love. In the end, be sure you're aware of how you're doing throughout your family experience, right? Take time to laugh, to cry, to vent frustrations, and to love your family. Observe good boundaries where you can. And remember your purpose and tune into your beliefs and your priorities. What does family mean to you, and how do you honor that? Don't forget, family can be your chosen family. It doesn't have to only be your biological family. Chosen family is just important. And sometimes, right, we spend time with others, but we also need to take time for ourselves too, especially if family events or family dynamics are especially triggering or stressful. So know that it's okay for you to take time for yourself when those things become difficult. Oh, if you are struggling with family relationships, healing family hurts, if the idea of forming boundaries with family members seems really hard, your EAP is a great resource that's available for you to help work through some of those things. Our counselors can help you identify coping skills. They can help you learn how to set boundaries. They can help you find meaning and live within your priorities. We offer short-term counseling that is available to you as the employee, but it's also available to every member of your household as well. So your partners, your spouses, dependent kids living in your house, everybody in your household is available to connect with this counseling. It's a really great benefit that's available to you. So definitely, if you feel like that could be helpful with anything you're experiencing with your family or anything else, conflict, relationships, parenting, definite grief, stress, anxiety, you can always reach out to the EAP. We are here for you. So here's our contact information. We are the Ascension Wisconsin Employee Assistance Program. You can connect with us by phone, 1-800-540-3758, or by email, eap@ascension.org, and through our website, www.ascensionwieap.org. So thank you so much for your time. Jen, I'm not sure if there are any questions in the chat. If there are, we can certainly try to answer those. No? Okay. Otherwise, I'm hoping there was so much really good information in this presentation. Jen and I were talking about this before the presentation. I'm hoping everybody found at least one takeaway that you can just kind of grab onto and take home into your family and your family life and your dynamics and those pieces. Hopefully you found more than one, but hopefully there was at least one useful piece there for you. So if you have any questions, I'll hang on for a couple minutes if you want to put them in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope this was a great informative presentation for you. Have a good day.